Welcome, everybody, to the Gimmick Infringement podcast. I am Brad Winchester, and with me, as always, is my tag team partner, Tyler McDowell Blanken. But it's a three-way tag. Once again, we have on the show Mike Steph here for the second episode of our Three Wisemen gift to you. Tyler, how we doing?
Doing great, Brad. I'm so excited about this one. We are going to be talking Paul Heyman in ECW. If you haven't checked out episode 1, we highly recommend you do. Don't pause this, right? Let's keep the vibes going. Stay here, but then after this, make sure you go back and revisit episode 1, in which we discuss Heyman in AWA and WCW. Like you said, Brad, we are joined with one of the best, one of our favorite dudes around, Mike Steph. Mike, we're going to talk ECW, and you have the first question. Hit us with it.
Okay. ECW. Where? My first question is this. My lovely daughter Mia just kind of interrupted me and let me know that she was leaving. So
Hey, Mia.
the Mia rub is in the
Mia rub. It extends the GI. It's not just on Salty Thoughts. It's here too. What's up, Mia?
My first question would be this. Where would, matter of fact, I'll ask this. Could ECW survive in this current climate? And if in any ways do y'all believe that AEW could be or is a spiritual successor to ECW?
Wow. Mike, you just came in throwing 95. right off the bat. I would expect nothing less. Yes, and yes. Granted, I'm going to say this, but admittedly, I'm going to put myself on blast and say that I'm not as up to or hip to their product as I should be. I haven't seen any of their live shows, but what I understand of GCW, it seems like GCW has really replicated a lot of what ECW was doing in terms of their match style and their audience and the venues they book. I think it's clear that GCW appears to be doing well and has a fan base. And it seems like every time I log on to X, they're promoting their latest show with really credible stars and kind of like ECW, credible, familiar stars, but then also investing in giving opportunities to younger talent. So yes, I believe they could certainly be successful now. I'm going to leave that there. And then secondly, for AEW, yeah, very much so. Mike, I think the whole idea of being a challenger brand and kind of adopting a sort of renegade philosophy and really poking the bear that is WWE and the people on top, and just kind of having that underdog company or brand to root for. 100% AEW is following in the spirit of ECW and Paul Heyman there. Ironically, Paul Heyman works for WWE, which we'll get into in the last installment that's dropping tomorrow. But yes and yes to both of your questions, man. I think AEW definitely represents a lot of the spirit that ECW had.
Yeah, I agree with you in that it represents a lot of that spirit. I don't know that it's a spiritual successor. And here's why. I feel like GCW is probably closer to that successor in that they will have those risks and they have the hardcore matches and all of those things. But really it's the rabid fan base. It's the I'm throwing beer bottles in the stands. I'm throwing all these things out. However, they don't have a TV deal the way AEW does. And that's where I think the difference is that AEW has a wider audience, more availability, and they're still doing the things that creates that fan base that is sticky, for lack of a better word. They just stick with the product and feel invested and have ownership in it. That's what I ended up loving about AEW, is being able to see it from the beginning, or close to it. For me, I came in a little late, but seeing it from very early on and feeling like, oh, I'm invested in this thing that's new and I'm getting to watch it grow and it feels familiar. And what I think it felt like was the Attitude Era, but a lot of it feels like ECW, which influenced the Attitude Era. So Paul's legacy lives on. ECW definitely a spiritual successor to AEW, or AEW a spiritual successor in some ways to ECW in the fan base sense and in the hardcore matches. But I kind of feel like GCW is closer to it in terms of how it feels as a community. But there's a lot of hard to ignore that Tony Khan was a huge ECW mark, and that there's a lot of overlap there, specifically with having different styles from different companies around the world. And I think that's probably the most important influence.
And even the acronym too, Brad, if I can just chime in before
AE
we pass
dub,
it.
AE dub, AE dub.
Yeah, and
That's another influence, right?
100%, and even GCW, right? Like, it just
GC
occurred to me,
yeah.
oh yeah, the letters are very
Yeah.
similar. You just replace one letter and ECW, GCW
I
for sure.
I don't think we have brand chance in any audience
Yes.
globally if it weren't for ECW.
Good
ECW
point.
changed the way fans interact with the product.
100%. And although I haven't purchased one of GCW shows, I certainly see the clips online and sort of follow what they're up to. And
I'd have to with Ali coming in.
I'm saying, right? I think there's a lot of overlap there. The kind of fingerprints or footprints of ECW are still on a lot of the wrestling we see today, which is pretty incredible. Mike, what are your thoughts on your question?
Well, I personally believe that ECW, the incarnation that we grew to love in the 90s, could not survive in this climate right now. Not to the extent that it thrived in the 90s. Just for the
Yeah, I
fact
agree
that
with that.
society is just different. You
We've
know,
evolved. Yeah.
of course, the PC police are out in mass. But in another way, I will say, similar to both what both y'all said, and I'm going to piggyback on that, as in for the Rabbit fan base. You know, I believe that was the genesis of what you see now, that unfortunately becomes so tribalistic. With I'm an AEW person, or I'm a WWE person. You know, just the what you call it, the respect, the hunger for their quote unquote brand to survive, for their brand to thrive. I think that came from ECW back in the days, you know, because it was like ECW against the world. You know, you can't, pretty much, no matter what federation you came, if you came to ECW arena, you was in their world. You wasn't a professional wrestler. Now you're an ECW wrestler. You have to adapt yourself to the rules of that. Now, that I don't think that goes on in today's climate,
Yeah.
when it comes to, you know, wrestling. You know, TNA, Impact, what have you. You know, you have people going back and forth, but they don't have to, you know, really encompass themselves into that world that ECW used to be in. So
Right. Well, great point, Mike, even about just the pride of repping the brand. I think about the AEW hoodie that is in my closet right now. And that's just interesting that I wouldn't buy necessarily a hoodie of a wrestler, but I wanted to rep the brand or the company. I don't know that we were rocking WCW hoodies, or that anyone's rocking a shirt that just has the WWE logo necessarily. It just, I think a lot of that was spawned during ECW, to have that pride, and you want to rep the brand, not even necessarily a specific wrestler all the time.
Well, when you have it plastered all over your body like Paul did. The hat, the jacket,
the hat is
everything.
like, you can go to PacSun.com right now and get the
Yeah.
ECW hat. It appears on my feed all the time. My algorithm is going nuts out here. Yeah,
Tyler, it's your turn to go nuts. Hit us with your question.
I'm so excited. I still have ECW is still so vivid in my mind in many ways. So here's my question for you guys. As a booker and creative mind, Heyman was known for accentuating the positives and, say with me, hiding the negatives with wrestlers. Who was your favorite ECW character?
Ooh. Okay. Matter of fact, this is actually easier than I thought. Because when you first said, I was like, "Well, Taz." I'm going to make this as short as possible. But I used to watch ECW. It used to come on 12:30 in the morning on Channel 31 in New York. And when that was my first introduction to ECW. I thought ECW was real. You know, I thought WWF, all right, that's that. WCW, 100%. That's that. ECW, yeah, they're real. You know, so, and then when I saw Taz, I saw the embodiment of realism when it came to Taz. Quiet as kept. I didn't realize Taz was Italian. I thought Taz was a brother.
I knew that's where this was going.
I thought Taz was a brother.
You could. Yeah.
Everybody did.
Taz from Red Hook.
Everybody did.
I was like, yo, That dude, he don't got no hoodie. He got a towel over his head, and he just like, yo, I'm gonna choke you out, brother. Yo, that was my dude. So yeah, like I said, short and sweet. Taz, choke you
Okay,
out. Yes.
so yeah, Taz is up there, Sandman's up there, Sabu's up there. I loved me some New Jack because it was different. I loved there's so many Mike Awesome. There's so many people that are in here. Um, you could even go to like Jericho, Rey Mysterio, the short run people, Eddie Guerrero,
Eddie, come
um,
on now.
Chris Benoit, Mr. Benoit,
Mikey Whipwreck.
Mikey Whipwreck. Yes, there's so many people that are in that company that came out of that company. I'm even forgetting people. We got Dreamer in there, Raven, like there's
Rhino.
Mike Douglas.
Rhino. Yes,
It's my-
yes,
The Dudley Boys.
the Dudleys.
Iconic.
Yes, the whole Dudley family, man.
Tie-Dye Jones.
Yeah. But for me, my favorite.
Franchise.
Yes,
Oh my God.
yes. For me, it's none of them. Not a single one of them. It's Joey Styles. Joey Styles is my favorite part about ECW.
Okay.
He is
Okay, Brad.
He is
Okay,
he's
B.
incredible. Like the oh my god pops me every or screaming cat fight. Like there's nothing in wrestling that made me laugh harder than Joey Styles just oh my god. It's just so good. It's in the intro for what happened here for a reason on this
I was gonna
podcast.
say I just heard this when I was
Yeah.
listening back to one of our episodes. That's right.
Yeah. It's so great. It's got to be Joey Styles for me.
Oh man, this makes me so happy, guys. So those were all fantastic names. I'm really inclined to go with Taz here, but I'm not. Love Joey Styles and his work in ECW, but I can't just copy you there, B. So I'm gonna go with the whole effing show, RVD. I love me some Rob Van Dam. It's pretty incredible to
RVD, man.
It's pretty incredible. This is going back to our conversation during Mike's question earlier in this episode with AEW. Mike, we literally saw RVD in AEW this year more than once. I mean, again, just a lot of overlap. I love RVD, man. Just the present in terms of again accentuating the positives and hiding the negatives. I think RVD was pretty well rounded. You know, kind of from the jump. I don't know that there was. I know there were many negatives to hide, but you know, Mike, you were saying about Taz's in-ring work and the character just being different. I want to echo that, but for RVD, the gear, the singlet, the colorful singlet, the moves he was doing, the athleticism, the flexibility, it was just incredible. I had not seen anything like that, and I was just hooked. No pun intended with your Taz pick. I was hooked from the very beginning when I saw Rob Van Dam. Still a big fan, and especially during my childhood, he was my dude, and I thought he's one of the best characters in ECW for sure.
5-star classic.
Okay, so my question for you guys. This is another one similar to the last one. So Paul's big shift to wearing ECW merch everywhere and into his snapback with a ponytail phase saw him shift from a kayfabe protector to letting people kind of sneak behind the curtain a little bit with his alternative brand. You can't have that. This, my friends, is a shoot video without it. He also showcased types of wrestling that American audiences weren't watching outside of just hardcore matches. So between the chants and the breaking of kayfabe, the different types of matches, what do you think his biggest impact on the business was and still is?
Wow. For me, it would be the variety that you would see and experience on the shows. Now, granted, again, this was a different time. Of course, with today's lens, we would love to have more prominent women's matches. Back then, it was just a lot of dudes on these shows, which is kind of surreal looking back on the card now. But again, we know times have changed for the better, and the business is much healthier in that respect. But for me, it's the variety. You would turn on an ECW show, and you would see the Dudleys in a really epic tag team match filled with tables. But then on that same card, you would also see, like you said, Brad, technicians. You would see luchadors, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero. You would see Tajiri. You would see talent.
Yes.
You would see a really diverse crop of talent from performers from all backgrounds and persuasions and homelands. It was, I think for me, the variety that you could see, the variety of talent within their shows, the variety of styles is what stood out to me and stands out to me most looking back on ECW's legacy. How about you, Mike?
Um, I'll stay on task as saying the realism, like he like was said in the question, being the protective kayfabe to actually pulling the curtain back, like that's what attracted me to ECW. The realism in the ring, the realism outside the ring, the storylines. Remember, uh, the Raven Sandman storyline where Raven pretty much brainwashes Sandman's son, and he has his mother, has his wife at like pretty much like a sex slave, drugged out. This was like groundbreaking. You never saw anything like this on TV. You never saw anything like this on wrestling. We went from the era of Miss Elizabeth taking off her skirt to show a bathing suit to actually years later, being implied that Raven was having his way with Sandman's wife. I mean, there was so many different aspects of what happened to ECW. Like, it was just the realism is what attracted me to it. Even that, even the like the contract disputes. One time I think Sabu didn't show up, so he pretty much publicly fired Sabu in the middle of the ring of ECW arena, and then due to the fan backlash, or pretty much due to the fact that they needed a replacement, he allowed Sabu to come back and explain to the audience, look, this is what we're doing. Sabu is here. Blah, blah, blah. Like that type of transparency was never seen in the wrestling industry at that time. And to a certain degree, very, very few times since, and he was the pioneer in doing all that. So yeah, just realism.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with what you guys said. I also think that we don't, between the variety and the realism, I don't know that we have as much cross promotional stuff because it sort of stopped with WWE. And then the one thing that I do think is a little problematic is that we also get rebrands sometimes that just don't work. Trying to relive glory days, like later DX stuff was trash, and the second coming of ECW, which was not ECW, was really, really bad. But it also gave us One Night Stand 1 and One Night Stand 2, which were incredible pay-per-views. Tyler and I, we've talked about this. The first one is still one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time, if not my favorite pay-per-view of all time. And that's only because of the love of Paul Heyman. I really wanted to include that into the ECW talk with him, but it's WWE talk. But him coming out wearing the trench coat with the ECW hat and getting love from the crowd is probably the only time we're ever going to see a babyface Paul Heyman. But what a time. What an impact. I still think we don't have hardcore matches on TV or pay-per-views. We don't have rabid fan audiences. We don't have the fan interaction the way it is, and we don't have the variety we've gotten without Paul Heyman and his ECW run.
Yeah, well said, guys. Well, one final plug for us, sportspodcastgroup.com. As you may already know, your guys were nominated for the 2024 Best Wrestling Podcast. We would love your vote, but we also want to let you know that our teammates on 19 have also received some recognition. We encourage you to vote for the Baseline NBA Podcast. They have been nominated for the 2024 Best Basketball Podcast. Easy for me to say. Big shout to Warren and Cal over there. They do amazing work, and we're incredibly proud of them. I'm also proud of us, guys. For Brad and Mike, we want to thank you so much for checking out this second installment of our Three Wisemen series. We hope you'll join us tomorrow for our next installment, our final one, in which we will discuss Paul Heyman in WWF and WWE. Gimmick Infringement is a part of 19 Media Group. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube via the 19 Media Group channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.